The renowned 1984 and Animal Farms, masterpiece from great English novelist, the great social critic and supporter of anti-totalitarianism, promotion of democratic socialism. Orwell foresaw the future and wrote many great novels as a warning sign and the precondition of ideal socialism. In this presentation, we will explore mainly about the novel Shooting an Elephant, which published in 1936. The novel describes the experience from Orwell himself while serving as a police officer in Burma. How comes this novel become one of the most prominent novels with a famous metaphor? When the white man turns tyrant, it is his own freedom that he destroys. We will discuss in this following presentation. First thing first, we need to know who George Orwell is. Eric Arthur Blair, better known by his pen name George Orwell, was an English novelist, journalist, and critic. His work characterized by lucid prose, social criticism, opposition to totalitarianism, and a big support of democratic socialism. Orwell produced many literary criticism, poetry, and polemical journalism. He is known for the allegorical novella called Animal Farm 1945 and the dystopian novel 1984. His non-fiction work, including The Road to Weekend Pierce and documenting his experience of working-class life in the industrial north of England, and Homage to Catalonia, an account of his experience soldiering for the Republican faction for the Spanish Civil War, are as critically respected as his essay on politics, literature, language, and culture. Blair was born in India and raised and educated in England. After school, he became an imperial policeman in Burma before returning to Suffolk, England, where he began his writing career as George Orwell, a name inspired by a favorite location, River Orwell. He lived from occasional piece of journalism and also worked as a teacher or bookseller with living in London from the late 1920s to the early 1930s. His success as a writer grew and his first books were published. He was wounded fighting in the Spanish Civil War, leading to the first period of ill health on return to England. During the Second World War, he worked as a journalist and for the BBC. The publication of Animal Farm led to fame during his lifetime. During the final years of his life, he worked on 1984 and moved between Jura in Scotland and London. It was published in June 1949, less than a year before his death. Orwell spent 5 years from 1922 to 1927 as a police officer in the Indian Imperial Police Force in Burma. The British had gradually annexed Burma instead, and it was not until 1885 when they captured the royal capital of Mandalay. Burma as a whole could be declared part of British Empire. Migrant workers from India and China supplement the native Burmese population. Although Burma was the wealthiest country in Southeast Asia under British rule, as a colony it was seen very much as a backwater. The image which Britons were meant to uphold these communities was a huge burden, and the majority of them carries expectations all the way from Britain with the intention of maintaining their custom and rule. Among its exports, the country produced 75% of the world's teak from upcountry forests. When Orwell came to the Irrawaddy Delta in January 1924 to begin his career as an imperial policeman, the Delta was Burma's leading exporting region, providing 3 million tons of rice annually, half of the world's supply. Orwell served in a number of locations in Burma after a year of training in Mandalay and Maymyo.
For Burmese people who know the story of his actions, they were very dissatisfied with his behavior. Whether his first accuse was to stay on the Burmese side and against the British. Moreover, after the Burmese informed the whereabouts of the lost elephant, they asked him to catch it, but he came back with a rifle, which Burmese people were afraid and dissatisfied with the weapon that he carried. At first, his subconscious expressed that he was unable to kill the Burmese working animal like elephant. But soon after, he immediately turned around and saw the yellow faces laughing at him, and he was worth looking even more with a gun in his hand. Finally, he decided to shoot the elephant down, and he came up with the perspective that when the white man turns tyrants, it is his own freedom that he destroys. In other words, Europe could do anything if they had done it the first time. What makes him even more hated by Burmese people is he fired not only one shot, but fired 2 more shots. In the last shot, he focused on especially the heart center, which can be considered as an act of cruelty and premeditated to let him die. Until the elephant was out of breath, it gradually took more than an hour. After he had done so, he still believed in himself that what he had done was the right thing, and he also claimed to the owner of the elephants, who were Indians, that it is his fault that he did not take good care of his animal. Another reason why Burma hates this action is because Burma is a British colony, and the killing of elephants can symbolize a country that is occupied by imperialism. So from Burmese point of view, they think that his action is quite brutal and immoral, and also shows the weakness of human behavior that can change people's mind from good to bad. From such incidents, Burmese people always question whether shooting the elephant was the right way, or it is just because of human behavior that sometimes it is unethical to kill elephants with such violence.
Orwell begins by sharing his memories of working as a young police officer in Burma. Just like many British and European people in Imperial Burma, he faced contempt and ridicule from the native populace. He wasn't respected by the native people. Burmese men would make him stumble during football match between Europeans and Burmans, and Buddhist priests would loudly insult the European colonizer on the streets. Orwell tells us that this experience instilled him 2 things. It confirmed his belief that imperialism was evil, but it also inspired a hatred of the enmity between the European imperialists and their native subjects. Of course, these 2 things are related, and Orwell understands why the Buddhist priests hate living under European rule. He is sympathetic toward such a view, but it isn't pleasant when you are personally the object of ridicule or contempt. He finds himself caught in the middle between hatred of the empire he served and his rage against the evil-spirited little beasts who try to make his job impossible. Orwell is telling a story about something that happened in Moulmein in Lower Burma. A tame elephant, which the local own and use, has gone on a rampage. It has destroyed a hut, killed a cow, and raided some fruit store for food. Orwell picks up his rifle and gets on his pony to go and see what he can do. He knows the rifle won't be good enough to kill the elephant, but he hopes that firing the gun might scare the animal. Orwell discovers that the elephant has just trampled a man, a coolie or native laborer, to the ground, killing him. Orwell sends his pony away and calls for an elephant rifle, which would be more effective against such a big animal. Going in search of the elephant, Orwell finds it coolly eating some grass, looking as harmless as a cow. It has calmed down, but by this point, a crowd of thousands of local Burmese people has emerged and is watching Orwell intensely. Even though he sees no need to kill the animal, now it no longer poses a threat to anyone. He realizes that the locals expect him to dispatch it, and he will lose faith both personally and as an imperial representative if he does not do what the crowd expects. So he chooses the elephant from a safe distance, marveling at how long the animal takes to die.
Shooting an elephant is obviously more than the killing of the elephant. The whole incident was a glimpse of the real nature of imperialism in the middle of the 20th century. So among other things, shooting an elephant is a metaphor how those in power act when they are aware that they have an audience. Orwell obligated to shoot a rogue elephant by the crowds from the indigenous residents for not wanting to seem a coward in the eyes of a huge crowd. It is about how so much of our behavior is shaped, not by what we want to do or even by what we think is the right thing to do, but by what others would think of us. To come all that way, rifle in hand, with 2,000 people marching at my heels, and then to trail feebly away, having done nothing. No, that was impossible. the crowd would laugh at me, and my whole life, every white man's life in the East, was one long struggle not to be laughed at. The word my whole life suddenly widens to every white man's life in the East. This is not just Orwell's psychology, but the psychology of every imperial agent. George Orwell goes on to imagine what grisly death he would face if he shot the elephant in myth. It is what British imperialism personified as. Being trampled to death by the elephant might be something that Orwell could live with, but by being laughed at, and laughed at by the natives? Orwell confessed that he had spent his whole life trying to avoid that, and this is one of the key motivations when dealing with the elephant, not to invite ridicule or laughter from people watching him. He also gave various reasons why he did not want to shoot the elephant. For example, he states that the elephant was worth more alive than it dead. And also he's bad at shooting. He would not want to miss the target, as he never wanted to make himself seem defeated. He went against his will and moral belief. He decided to shoot. This describes how the British people would never want to seem less powerful than the natives, as the colonizers in the story did. It is also worth mentioning that the death of the elephant itself metaphorically represents the British imperialism in Burma, because before the British expansion came to Burma, it was a free kingdom, and the Burmese and the British oppressors fought 3 wars, hence the 3 shots at the elephant. After the 3rd shot, the elephant is still alive, just like the Burmese people who were still there, powerless and helpless. By killing the elephant, Orwell can justify himself for having the right to shoot a mad elephant like a mad dog out of owner's control. But at the end, he still wonders if anyone will see his attempt avoid being a fool.
George Orwell's Shooting an Elephant has a broad collection of quotes which Orwell uses to describe his idea and feelings of his time working for the British Empire. Orwell was critical of the British Empire's presence in Burma, believing that their authority there was immoral and fully aware that they were not welcome in any way. There is this one quote from the essay that presents itself quite striking and bizarre, because it talks about the British Empire losing its freedom, although they were the one in charge. Orwell wrote in his essay, "When the white man turns tyrant, it is his own freedom that he destroys. It is much a foreign concept to think about when a position of power losing their liberty to the oppressed while they were fully in control. But here is what Orwell means. He was tasked to put down an elephant on rampage. When he arrived at the scene, that elephant had already calmed down. He did not want to kill it, but he felt the pressure of the crowd, so he reluctantly shot the creature. It was not his own free will to do so, and that moment he realized that he was just a puppet exercising the will of the public. The roles were reversed. It was the Burmese people that controlled a British officer. His freedom of action was robbed by the very people the empire was supposed to control, and he quoted, "I had done it solely to avoid looking a fool." He submitted to the expectation that the crowd had for him. At the time, Orwell did not just represent himself. The uniform he was wearing represents British authority. Had he exercised his free will, the image of the British authority and himself would be taken as a fool. And this statement rings true to the empire itself as well. They are clearly unwelcome in the place they colonized. Although while they are exploiting each colony, they also had to maintain the image of power, or else there would be a rebellion. In a sense, the white man's freedom was taken away by having to put up an act for the locals, either to be feared, be trusted or respected, which also applied to any position of power. Once you have the power, people are going to expect you to make the right choice.